What's the biggest dollar amount that you saved a client with financial planning?
I would say that, and I love that you said financial planning because financial planning is bigger than just investment management. I would say that it's not unusual for us to save a couple $1 million, particularly estate tax is really a big area. That's routinely will save clients millions of dollars on that. There's a lot of planning that goes into that. There's a lot of technical details that go into that. But I think what's important is the tax system is really complex and it's designed to be, there's layers to it. Folks are fairly comfortable with like how capital gains work. When you sell an asset, if it appreciates, then Uncle Sam wants their bite of the apple there. What is really interesting is a lot of folks don't realize how estate tax works. And right now, the estate tax limit is super high. Right now, it's 13.99 million. It's going to go to 15 million at the end of this year. When we think about estate tax, it's kind of like a coupon. Our friends in Washington have decided how much wealth you can pass to the next generation without them taking a bite of that apple. The problem is they changed those rules, and the estate tax is effectively 40% flat. And so if we miss that, that's really, really expensive. And so where this comes into play typically with the clients that we work with is folks that have illiquid assets. So it might be concentrated stock, it might be private stock that doesn't trade, it might be business assets, real estate assets. And so anything that's above that number, 13.99 million today, is taxable at 40%. And that tax is due 9 months after you pass. Now, there's a lot that we can do to maneuver and be creative and use that coupon. What I find is that even really sophisticated, really high net worth people don't realize that this is a problem. There's a story that is really fun. I have a colleague that I work with who specializes in this, and we were meeting with a founder of a company. He actually had a wine business that's similar to what we're building. Been doing it for decades. He was in his 70s. It's probably worth 150 million would be my guess. We're talking to this guy, and it's interesting because I love wine. And my colleague goes, "Hey, so what's the plan for estate tax? Because we're doing succession planning here." And he goes, "For what? Like, how are you going to handle estate tax?" He goes, I don't know what you mean." We start to walk through it, and he goes, "Well, anything above this amount, the feds want 40%. He goes, "No, you're making that up. That's crazy." "No, actually, that's how it works." And he goes, "So your business is going to go to your boys?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he says, "Okay, so can they come up with, 30, $40 million if they need to, and that happens?" He looks at me, he looks at my colleague, and he goes, "No, they're morons." What are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? And so that's a little bit aggressive, but that's a real story of someone who has this problem, didn't know that it was an issue, and it's a liquidity issue in his case, right? And so what happens is in these types of situations, we need to gift and we need to structure assets the right way so that we can get a discounted valuation when they pass through to the kids. But in his case, and it's the perfect example of folks can be highly successful, can be great at their business and not know how some of these rules work. In a lot of cases, the second and third generation maybe isn't as competent as the first generation that built it, at least in the idea, in the eyes of the founder, right? And so this is an area where not knowing how the rules work can be extremely costly. That type of situation is really where we find a ton of value. Other instances where we've been able to save clients quite a bit of money, things like research and development credits, that can be huge. And with the new OBBA, one big beautiful bill as it's called, that has changed how those rules work. So folks that are technical founders, folks that do software development or R&D in the US, there's a lot of opportunity there. So those types of things are the financial planning areas that we're able to help a lot of folks with. The other area, different type of client that we find a ton of value in, and all of my colleagues are going to debate about this, which is going to be fun. I'm a huge fan of doing Roth conversions, really, really attractive to a lot of our clients who are retirees, who are approaching that phase. There's debate about whether that makes sense, how that works. Most of the folks that we work with, especially in that phase of life, the question of whether to do a Roth conversion, pay tax that's owed on an IRA or 401k, and do that proactively rather than reactively when you take that money out. The question is, what's your tax rate going to be at the time? And we don't know that, right? We don't know what tax rates are going to be. We don't know what your tax rate's going to be. But what we find that people do want and makes sense to them is they want to have more control over that. And so for them, doing Roth conversions, paying the tax now on their terms at known quantities tends to make a lot more sense than just hoping the tax rates go down in the future and staying on the government's plan. So those are really some key areas that we are able to make big savings.